Some inventions change the way we see the world, and others don't. Those are the ones that make it into a traveling museum called the Museum of Failure. The museum recognizes things like an early attempt at 3D gaming.
Virtual Boy, see it now in 3D.
A soda called Crystal Pepsi.
No caffeine, low sodium, no preservatives, and oddly for a cola, no color.
And a chair that gyrates in circles to help you work out.
If you can sit, you can get fit. The Hawaii chair.
None of those products became everyday household items, but the Museum of Failure still honors them. Because after all, innovation is only possible when we try things that might not work. From Connecticut Public Radio, this is Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. This hour, we're reframing failure and celebrating people who take risks. Later in the show, we hear from young people who discuss charting their own paths. But up first, Dr. Samuel West is an organizational psychologist. He founded the Museum of Failure in Sweden in 2017. The museum now travels around the globe and is in Paris until May 17th, 2026. Samuel, it's wonderful to have you on Disrupted.
Thank you for inviting me, and I love the name of this podcast.
It feels like it's such a connection between the name and focus of this podcast and the work that you are doing. Let's get right into it. Failure is something that many people are taught and socialized to avoid and to not talk about because of the stigma. You not only talk about it, you have opened a museum that is dedicated to exploring failure. What is it about failure that is so compelling to you?
Usually when we fail, we sweep it under the carpet and we hope that nobody sees it. At the Museum of Failure, we take those failures and we put them on a pedestal and we shine a spotlight on them. What I think is most compelling about failure is, there's multiple reasons, but one is sort of it's genuine. It's not been refined by a corporate PR team and communication people. It's not been curated by someone with an agenda. Failure is brutal. It's there. It's right there, and it's reality. Especially from the corporate and these companies, when they fail, they sugarcoat it in corporate BS or some other way to cover it up. And we're all used to that. So seeing someone present failure in all its glory, unaltered, unrefined, it's genuine.
What failure means to me in my stage of life and, the things that matter to me may be very different from others. Given your background as an organizational psychologist, a licensed clinical psychologist, is there a particular definition of failure that you use? Or do you say it is whatever it means to the person or entity that has failed?
Yeah. No, I don't like those completely contextual definitions. So I love the definition of failure in the organizational psychology literature, which is very simple and straightforward, that failure is a deviation from expected or desired results. So it doesn't confine failure to any specific, to economic failure or to humanitarian failure. And it ties failure to expectations, which it always is. So if you're aimlessly wandering about, you're not even looking for what are we looking for? A restaurant or something, a goal. There's no expectations. It doesn't matter what happens. Did you find a restaurant? Did you make a new friend? Did you play Frisbee? It doesn't matter because you had no goal. You had no expectations. So it can't be a failure. However, if you're on a mission to find whatever thing and you don't, then that becomes your mission. Your walk becomes a failure. Does it make any sense, or am I babbling?
No, it does. And let me tell you how this makes sense. I had a conversation with one of my students who was talking about disappointment and why certain things felt more disappointing than others, or why certain things felt like a failure. What I said to the student is, it feels that way because you had an expectation of an end result. You expected, I work in this way, this will be the reward for that work. And it didn't feel that way. Whereas the thing that just surprised you because you didn't expect it, you didn't even know it was possible, that feels different.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about that context of expectations, of disappointments, of deviations. And then in a practical sense, how do you curate that in a museum? Talk to me about that process of choosing the pieces of this museum that then help tell that story that you're so versed in.
Yeah, that's the difficult part. So the criteria for inclusion are that the item or whatever we're going to display has to be a failure, right? And usually, because I started this when I was working a lot as an innovation consultant, helping companies improve their culture for innovation, the criteria was that it's failure and that the item was innovative. That people, whoever made this or took this initiative, was actually trying to change things, improve things. When it's a consumer product, it's easy. Like, oh, this is a new version of a cell phone. More difficult when we talk about ideologies or medical procedures. But there has to have been something where they actually were pushing things forward. So number one, failure. Number two, innovation. And number three is a kind of silly one, but I have to find it interesting, which is very easy because I find most things interesting. I've relaxed a little bit on the innovation part because some failures are so interesting despite not having anything to do with innovation, but I've tried to keep it fairly strict.
Give us an example or two of something that one would encounter in the museum that may not be as obvious in terms of when we think of failures, but helps tell this story.
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll give you an example of something that's not in the museum. So do you remember 10 years ago or so, Samsung had a phone that caught on fire, the battery caught on fire. So anytime you would fly somewhere, they would say, hey, everybody, blah, blah, blah. If you have a Samsung phone, turn it off because it was terrible, right? This phone caught on fire. That is not in the Museum of Failure because that wasn't about them developing something new. It wasn't a new technology. It was nothing. There was nothing innovative there. It was just bad manufacturing. The battery caught on fire because it was badly made. So it's a huge failure. It was a huge commercial failure. It was bad for Samsung's reputation, etc. So it does qualify as a massive failure, but I didn't think, and I still don't think it belongs in the museum because there's plenty of bad manufacturing. There's badly executed ideas all over the place. And they're just not innovative. So that's not in the museum. I mean, I think the Segway is a good illustration. The Segway meets all the criteria. Do you remember the Segway?
I do. Remind our listeners about this piece of transportation that became a failure.
Oh, the Segway is iconic. 2001. You've seen them. Everybody's seen them. You stand up and it's like a scooter, but you stand on it and it's self-stabilizing. When it was launched, the Segway was so hyped up. It was the next biggest thing. If you think AI is hyped today, it was nothing on the Segway. People expected, the Segway to be, I have some quotes, the first product in human history to reach 1 billion in sales within the first year. That's one example. Another example is it's going to be bigger than the internet.
No pressure.
No pressure. It's easy to laugh at this now, but at the time, this was reality. My favorite was, quote, in the future, city infrastructures will be built around the Segway. We all see that none of this happened, right? So the Segway was still an amazing product, a genius invention in many, many ways, but it failed to meet any of those expectations and all the sales expectations, all the hype. It was too expensive. It was unsafe. There was a lot of reasons why it didn't catch on. And as such, the Segway, despite still existing in various forms, even as a brand and as a concept, It definitely belongs into the Museum of Failure because it failed to meet any expectations of success.
And I'm
You
thinking with that segue example, there are individual or personal expectations, and then there are societal expectations. So
totally,
there then becomes levels of failure, some that are very public and very costly,
yeah.
and others that are more private. But that kind of dynamic of not overselling the expectation
Yeah.
because then the failure becomes monumental.
I should actually create an entire section at the museum of how the hype, again, expectations, ties into failure because I think we as a society, definitely the United States, Western Europe, we are constantly bombarded with hype. Like, this is the thing, you need this, whether it's a new pill, a new this AI, oh, it's going to take over the world and you're going to change everything. I'm still drinking coffee from a mug. I think we've become desensitized a bit to hype, but all that leads to is that the hypers scream louder and hype more. So we're constantly getting bombarded, and it's changing because if you don't hype up something, then people think, oh, what's wrong with your service or your product or your course or your ideas? If you're not screaming, what's wrong with them?
Coming up, more with Samuel West, founder of the Museum of Failure. He'll explain why failure isn't always as bad as we expect it to be.
It's not that your failure doesn't matter, it's that people are quite forgiving.
And later, young people open up about how life has taken them on unexpected paths.
I felt a lot of shame in the time because I really wanted to be, on my mother's side, the first to go to college and graduate.
This is Disrupted. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. This hour, we're celebrating failure and risk-taking. We're still joined by organizational psychologist Samuel West. He founded the Museum of Failure, which showcases products that didn't meet the expectations set for them. I was curious about how people react to the museum.
I created this museum for innovation nerds, like for myself, my colleagues, and people who are involved with, new product development, design, any kind of areas related to innovation. And what surprised me was the general interest in the museum, that people who had nothing to do with my line of work were interested in the museum. And I mean, I've mentioned one reason people are interested is this authenticity, genuineness. There's also, I mean, these stories presented in the museum, they're stories of people who wanted things, ambitious people who wanted, to make a product that sold well and made money. It's people who wanted to change medicine, who had ideological ideas that wanted to make the world a better place. And the stories behind these failures are fascinating because you never know at what point an initiative goes from good to bad. And these stories do highlight how tricky and difficult it is to accomplish something in terms of innovation. Then for the museum, it's tricky. It's difficult, and failure, because we don't talk about it, we think that it doesn't exist. I mean, from the that you mentioned, your students, everyone hears examples of people's fantastic academic careers and how they flourished at school and everything is wonderful. You seldom hear the other story saying, man, it's tough. Being in academia is terrible at times, most of the times.
Yes, most of the time.
Those, that's not really discussed in the same way. You only see oh, now so-and-so's a professor. Oh, wow. You don't see the terribleness behind it. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by only focusing on the shiny, happy, successful aspects of life and not giving credit to all the hard work behind it and failures.
We are so trapped in this veneer of perfection or this veneer of success that often what happens when we don't talk about the failures, let me be clear, plural, then people start to think, well, there must be something wrong with me
Yeah.
because Samuel's got it all figured out. He's a
Yeah, he's got his
consultant on
everything
this.
together.
He's got it all together, right? He's a
Yeah.
consultant on this. He has this museum. He's doing all these wonderful things.
Yeah.
People don't know, and I'm not saying this to say that people should know or that people have some right to know, but that inability to talk about the failures and the challenges has an impact on resilience and an impact
Totally.
on how people navigate through. I'm wondering, Samuel, how much of that is cultural? Is this just an issue in the United States? Or as you take this around the world, you're
Mm.
hearing elements of that? Like, what is that
Mm.
cultural context?
Oh, wow. We need a separate show for that because it's a fascinating topic. There's massive cultural differences, regional differences, where the museum was started in Sweden. They have a very non-hierarchical, flat society, at least in the workplace, and a good social support system in the Scandinavian countries, and their approach to failure sort of mirrors that. You can tell your boss that that's a stupid idea, dude, and you won't get fired for it. So there's a little more of an open culture there, and I'm not saying that the Nordics embrace failure more than anyone else, but there is an understanding that if you take risks, you're still not going to be on the street. If you go to Southern Europe, Spain, Italy, even France in some ways, there's much more hierarchy. And as such, failure is not talked about at all, and you avoid talking about, and you would hide your own failures if you did something in the workplace. In the United States, the difference is West Coast, East Coast. I mean, California, Silicon Valley, famous for their fail forward mentality, it's not a myth. I mean, if you lose a couple $1 million on a stupid idea, you'll still get funding for your next idea. And that's beautiful. And that's the envy of the world, that attitude can prevail in Northern California. And then you have the Far East Asia. I've done a lot of work in South Korea, Japan, China. Extremely conflicted relationship to failure. It's for us. It's like, oh no, it fails. Oh, that's embarrassing. Ah, man, that sucks. I did a small pop-up museum in Seoul, and I was not expected. I wasn't warned about the response. I had a queue of people lined up to cry and hug me. These are business professionals, and I was like, I don't know what's going on here. It's an emotional, and their response was to see someone talk about failure without feeling extreme shame is liberating to them personally, not just as far as innovation and business. It was very deeply emotional, and that doesn't happen in the States or in Europe.
I'm always curious. You have that moment of people feel that it's a liberating experience, it's a freeing experience that they can experience collectively. And
Yeah,
that's a win, right? To say
yeah.
that I've curated this space and people feel seen and present in it. But I imagine, Samuel, there may be pieces of the museum where people say, that's not a failure. Like, I'm offended, actually, that you
Yeah.
would call that a failure. Are there examples where people had a kind of visceral reaction to, no, that's actually a problem?
Oh, I would be very rich if I got $1 every time someone said that. The ones who people are most sort of animate about are actually the computer games. So I think there's 4 or 5 computer games in the museum that failed for whatever reasons, and they get the most combative. Like, it's not a failure, it was only a failure, and then they use their internal sort of esoteric language there. And I'm like, no, 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 I base it on this research, I'm not changing anything, but I really like that game, and I've played so and so many hours. And I'm like, it doesn't change that it was a failure. Yeah, no, hey, it does highlight that. We'll go back to the Segway as an example, because I got an email a few weeks after the museum was launched and got massive global media attention. I got an email from a guy who says, hey, I see you have the Segway in the museum. He's like, I get it. It's a failure. He's like, but it's been a complete success for me. He's like, I have a physical disability. I can't walk. And for me, and I have the money to buy this expensive thing. And it has changed my life and given me a possibility of having a much higher quality of life than I would ever have without it. He's like, so the Segway is a failure on the grand scale, but it's a fantastic success for him. And that, for me, it was beautiful because it highlights that failure is never isolated. So something that's massively failure for one person or one group or doesn't have to be a failure for everyone. There's always nuances of that.
Let me ask you a question that may not be a fair question, but I know it is on the minds of many people. Our fear, whether it's personal or collective, our fear of failure is a learned and socialized behavior that, yes, varies based on context and country and region and all of those factors. But if it's a learned behavior, Samuel, I would hope that we could unlearn it in some ways. Do you have one or two ways that we could think about unlearning our fear of failure, or at least recognizing that fear?
Totally. I mean, that's the aim of one of the main aims of the museum is, and everything associated to all the discussions and everything related to it, is to destigmatize failure, to give failure some credit, and to appreciate it for what it is. I mean, it's never going to be good to fail. It's always going to be expensive, painful, embarrassing, etc., etc. When people visit the museum, they do get a sense of sort of liberation, because if these massively rich, successful, all-knowing, massive resources corporations can fail when they try new things, then it does liberate us as a small individual person. That if we're going to try, we're going to learn something, do something new, that we also fail, and that's okay. I don't think we're going to eliminate the fear of failure, because some amount of fear of failure is good. I mean, we don't want to eliminate all anxiety, because that would be terrible. But I do think that Mark Twain wrote that, I've suffered many horrible things and some of them actually happened. And it's true with failure. We assume that it's going to be terrible, when in fact it's not, seldom as terrible as we can imagine it. So my advice that I've learned working with this and talking with many people is to sort of take a step back and realize that it's not that your failure doesn't matter, it's that people are quite forgiving. Your context, even in the most brutal work environments, definitely in social circles, if you own up to your own failure, people are quite surprisingly forgiving and understanding if you own up to it and you're honest. And also that the monsters, the terrible tortures you can conjure up in your mind are seldom actually what happens. And this is what people like me, who are very good, very excellent failures. Once you fail enough, if you take enough risks, then you fail. And this is regardless of what space you're in. And you start to do it, you can start to get a little bit like, no, it's okay. It's not that bad to fail. You can take bold risks and take intelligent, bold risks. And, and if it fails, which it usually does, it's okay.
I love that idea of taking intelligent, bold risk, because as you said, people are often forgiving. And my hope is that we become more forgiving of ourselves as well, so that we can take those intelligent risks and be able to have some wonderful outcomes.
Thank you.
Samuel West is an organizational psychologist. He founded the Museum of Failure, which pops up around the world. It's in Paris until May 17th, 2026. Coming up, we'll hear from young people about how they think about failure and success.
So honestly, I think that in itself is success to me. Waking up and getting excited to go to work.
This is Disrupted. Stay with us. Welcome back to Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. This hour, we're reframing failure. It's particularly important in a moment when many students and their families feel anxiety about high tuition costs, student loan debt, and graduating into an uncertain job market. So we now turn to a panel of young people talking about the pressures they face to avoid perceived failure. This panel was hosted by two of our interns, Megan Rodriguez-Hawkins and Davina Cordeiro. I'll let them take it from here.
We put a lot of pressure on young people to meet certain goals, whether that's going to college or finding a job. So now we are hosting a panel of young people to talk about their journeys and all the ways it can take you in unexpected directions. I'm Megan Rodriguez-Hawkins, an intern at Connecticut Public and recent graduate of Wellesley College.
And I'm Davina Cordeiro, an intern at CT Public and recent graduate of UMass Amherst. Joining us is Melina Floyd, a community organizer in Bristol, and Ella Nicastro, a paraprofessional at Duffy Elementary School in West Hartford. Melina and Ella, welcome to Disrupted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, higher education is often considered a place where young people start to figure out who they are and what they want to do. I know for me, during the course of my college career, I think I changed my career like 4 different times. I went in as a fashion designer, and then as a documentary filmmaker, and then as a political economist, and I still use all of that in my profession as a journalist. So I want to start with Melina here. Melina, what has been your experience with higher education?
So my experience was not traditional from the start. When I graduated high school, I decided to take a gap year. And during that year, I worked in customer service and started building my resume. I started volunteering. And then I went to college the next year. I was a year older than my freshman class, but I was still trying my best for a few years. And then around my 3rd year, I dropped out and I have not looked back.
What about you, Ella? What has been your experience with higher education?
After I graduated high school, I went to college at Eastern and was there for 3 semesters. I really tried to, push through the last semester, and I figured out that I couldn't. So I decided to take a gap semester, which then turned into a gap year and a half. And same goes for me. I really haven't looked back. I love my job, and that's where I kind of just want to stay for now.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the expectations that are placed on young people to be successful. When we think of someone failing something or being a failure, there's often this crippling fear associated with it. Ella, how did you feel this fear or pressure, and what exactly do you think you were afraid of?
I just had a very set mindset of how my life should go and how I should go about my life. And that was college. That was 4 years of college. That was, the traditional path. Both of my two out of 3 of my parents are teachers. So it was very I thought that I had to do this. But luckily there was no pushback from anyone in my life to keep doing the traditional path when I figured out that that's not what I wanted to do and figured out a different path to go towards. Luckily, I had nothing. They were all very supportive of that decision. So I was really lucky on that.
Yeah, awesome. It definitely is helpful when the people closest to you aren't kind of placing those fears upon you. But I just kind of want to also know, how would you even define failure? I mean, especially when you're going through making a really hard decision where you're thinking, oh, this is me failing, or oh, I'm not failing because I haven't done this yet. Where do you kind of place those boundaries, I guess?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, I wouldn't say that I necessarily failed. I didn't really finish college, but I wouldn't say I failed it because again, I went in a different direction, and to me, I won. I got the job that I have now, and I love it, and I figured out that that's what I wanted to do. Because when I was in college, I didn't even know. So once I figured it out, I felt like I won. And in the time, I definitely was that was a rough time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times, I mean, I know when I was in high school, it's like the idea of oh, if you don't go to college, then you're not going to get a job, then you're going to have a horrible life. And it all kind of like spiraled from there of like, oh, if you can't do this one actually very hard, sometimes not even worthwhile thing, then, you know, the rest of your life is just going to be like ruins. And Melina, it's kind of the same question for you. How did you feel any pressure while you were going about on your journey? And did you have any fears that you really had to face to make it out the other side?
I felt pressure from the beginning. When I had graduated, you know, it was traditional to go to college right after and to go to a 4-year university, as Ella said, and to, you know, get a job and follow this path. And I originally wanted to go to a 2-year program and, you know, just see how I would do in college. But that was not the path that would have had me get supported by the people that had been supporting me. And so out of fear, I decided to go down the path that they had laid down for me, but that didn't end up working out either. So I felt this immense pressure when I knew I needed to leave school. I knew I couldn't. At first, I had tried to commute and not live on campus, and that didn't even work. It actually made it harder. So at that point, you know, there was no real other choice for me. And the pressure from that was tough in the moment. But now looking back, I have a very similar experience. I probably would not be doing the job I'm doing now. I wouldn't have the life I have now. And so it definitely felt at the time like it could have been the end of the world, or like I will never amount to the things that people expect from me, but I have to stop placing other people's expectations higher than my own.
When you made that decision, what went into it? Did you feel a sense of shame at all, even if it was the best decision in the long run?
I did. I will say this. I have 2 great parents. My mother did not go to college and my father did. My father had a similar experience to me where he ended up dropping out as well, but a lot of pressure came from him. He ended up going back, getting a master's degree, doing amazing things. He does amazing work now, and actually I see him a lot because we work in the similar fields. But I'm there without a degree. Looking back on it, it's different. I felt a lot of shame in the time because I really wanted to be on my mother's side, the first to go to college and graduate. That felt like something very monumental. But my sister, my younger sister, actually went to college, graduated early, graduated with honors. And I think that's perfect for my mother's lineage for to have, you know, looking back, I do feel at the time there were so many things that I really put a lot of pressure on myself to do. Like, okay, if I'm going to drop out, I need to get a good job. I need to do this. I need to do this. And maybe that drive helped me, or maybe it put more stress on me. But at the end of the day, you know, I look back and realize that I would not have found what I was looking for going to college at the time. And the societal pressure was there, but you have to separate yourself from that because everybody's path is not yours.
And Ella, kind of to toss the same question over to you. I know you've talked about how you did feel a lot of support in making your decision. But kind of even with that support, I know I've still made decisions and felt shame even when everyone around me is like cheering and celebrating. Did you feel that at all?
Yeah, definitely. It was like Melina said, it was tough to go against the societal standards, definitely, and to make that decision and then stand on it and actually go through with the big decision change. It was definitely rough. I didn't really want to like tell people that I was leaving. It was like, to me it was like a secret. Like I didn't want to like make it a big thing. Like I didn't want to make it a big deal. And yeah, I felt a lot of pressure to do something better than college, which was hard to even figure out what even that better would be. Um, so yeah, I was trying to figure out, because I didn't even know what I wanted to do at college. So it was also like I felt like I was wasting so much time and money going to college. So I was really trying to, like, in my semester off, I was really trying to figure out what that could be, what that could look like. The 2 things that I had in my head since high school were teacher or nurse. So I was like, okay, how do I like figure out, how do I, you know, get the experience and try to get on the right path for one of these? So I was trying different things, and eventually I asked an elementary school in my in my hometown if I could have a sub job, because I was just like, I love kids, might as well like work in elementary school. And there was no option for a sub. There was no openings, but they saw that I had a brother on the spectrum. So they were like, well, if you have all this experience with autism, do you want to work in the special ed classroom? Sure. And that's where I am now. And I can't imagine doing anything else. So in the long run, I'm very, very happy that I went through that. But definitely there was a lot of internal shame, a lot of, stressors that went along with that big decision. But definitely the support system helped. I was really lucky with all family, friends, everyone, that they agreed with my decision and they were supportive of it.
And this conversation is sort of making me think of all the small disruptions that we do in our day-to-day lives. So I wanted to ask you, Melina, how do you challenge the concept of failure with your loved ones or people in your community, especially as a community organizer, and thinking about how long it takes for change to happen?
That is a great question because it's true. Sometimes I feel like a walking protest is what I've called myself. I don't think that the standards that we have are equitable for all people. And I tend to challenge that in my work. I work for a large nonprofit, but on the side, what I've recently gotten into is starting a community garden in my hometown to do a lot of work and be in a leading role. They assume you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. They assume that you come from this sort of place, whether it's a socioeconomic class or it's a certain background, maybe even a race. That's what is assumed. And so when they see me and I'm none of those things, I think that is important to be. I also enjoy being very young while I do all of this. I really think that the youth aspect is also the most unexpected part is while, you're accomplishing things, you're happy with your life, you're doing the path towards your goals. And some people that may be in a different part of their lives or in a different age in their lives look at you like, how can you do that? And so it's disruptive in the best way because we're disrupting systems that don't help everybody.
So as we've been talking, I think it's important to emphasize that nothing is one and done. You both have talked about wanting to go back to school potentially if it makes the most sense for you all. I know for myself personally, whenever I try something and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and I label it as a failure because that's what I'm going to do, I can be scared to try something similar because once is, like, oh, the situation was just bad. Twice, okay, maybe it's personal. Do you feel that way too? How do you not let that stop you from trying?
It's tough as my life has changed very much in the last few years since I've dropped out. Having a job, when I did drop out, I ended up moving in with a partner who I am now married to, and we have a child, and he's very small. And so there's so many factors into going back to school. But I do see the value in having, as we call it, that piece of paper, that degree. People work very hard for it, and advanced degrees as well. And I do recognize that. And I recognize that it helps in your career. It could help in so many different ways. And there are opportunities that higher education does provide people, but it's also very expensive and it's not very accessible. Me as a mom and as a full-time worker and as somebody who's also neurodivergent, I want to find the path that's going to be best for me to be successful. And thankfully, nowadays, there are so many alternative paths. There are, flex path college courses and all these online schools, and there's so many opportunities. And so they're in the back of my mind every day. And I have this feeling that I'm not going to get further in my career unless I get this piece of paper still to this day. But I also realize I am doing these things. I'm doing big things and great things and important things without this piece of paper. So it's a struggle for me constantly. I don't know if Ella feels the same way, but it's tough to consider all of the things that need to be considered, but also realize I have the power to do what's best for me.
I mean, change in itself is just so scary in general. It's, even just like thinking about having a big change in life is very internally stressful for me. But once I was there and knew that it wasn't for me, I kind of knew that there had to be a change, whether I was stressed about it or not. It kind of just needed to happen. Once I realized that I had to go, I just didn't let myself give up. Kind of, I was just like, okay, well, if I have to go, then this is what I need to do. So I had like a set, like a checklist for myself. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this while I'm at home. I'm going to try to get back on track with the things that I want to get involved in my life. And yeah, I mean, seeing Melina talk about her life and seeing her like light up every time she talks about it, it's kind of the same for me. Like if I stayed in school, I would not be talking about my life in that way. And I wouldn't be like, anytime anyone asks me about my job, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, please let me talk about it. Like I love my job. So it's just like yes, change is scary. And yes, thinking that you failed is also terrifying. But sometimes you have to try. You can't just give up. You can't just think, okay, well, I failed. Oh, well, what's next? You have to keep going. You have to, get yourself to the point of where you are succeeding again and where you're happy and, excited about life and excited about what's going to come.
Thank you both for all the intention behind your answers. I know for myself, the concept of success is quite abstract, especially when you're seeing people achieve bigger and better and more perhaps glamorous things than what's going on in my day-to-day life, I suppose. And so I'm curious to hear from both of you what it means or what it looks like for you to be successful. And what is the space between where you are now and this perhaps abstract version of yourself? Ella, we can start with you.
To me, it's really just like being happy. Like I wasn't really happy before, and where I am now, I am like, I'm excited to wake up every morning and go to work. I'm on April break right now from school and I miss my kids already. Like I want to go back to work so bad. And I just never thought that I would be in a place like that. Ever since like middle school or high school, I've been so stressed about what my life's going to look like, how I'm going to like get through college, what my job's going to be, what my, everything. I've been stressed about everything. And I never thought that I would find a job that I would be excited to wake up in the morning and go to every day. So honestly, that in itself, I think is success to me. I work as a para. I don't get $1 million a paycheck, but I don't care. I would rather be getting no money and be super, super happy to go to work than being miserable at work or dreading going in every day. So honestly, I think that in itself is success to me, waking up and getting excited to go to work.
And Melina, if I could pose the same question to you, what does it mean or look like for you to be successful?
I have a very similar answer to Ella. I think it is about, waking up and being happy to do the things that you do, finding a job that you love doing and don't care about how much money you're getting paid is rare, especially in this economy. It's ridiculous to see people that are really unhappy with their lives after working so hard to find this job that, they went to school for, because there are so many other paths. For me, I work at a nonprofit. I don't make $1 million either, but I do love the work. I love the opportunities it gives me. I love my volunteer work with everything in me, my passion projects. I have time to spend with my family. I have work-life balance. I'm living what is my dream, and maybe it may not be other people's. Maybe they would rather be making more money and flying places, and that's them. But for me, being able to separate what looks best for other people and what would be best for me, I dress up my life. Like I dress nice. I go places. I go out to eat. I do the things that I want to do. I make myself feel happy about where I'm at because I'm enjoying it. And a lot of people don't take the time to do what's they're going to enjoy. They don't find that. They're so focused on, okay, how do I achieve this? How do I go higher? How do I go further? So being able to be happy with what you have and where you're at and defining your success based on what's best for you and not what other people dictate is kind of important, but it also, not everybody gets there. So when you're able to get there and when you're young enough to have this at a young age so that you can really appreciate your life, I think it's very important and very valuable.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much both for your answers. And I mean, if it's any consolations, I think you're very both successful. And before we end this conversation, I do want to make something very clear. Although we're talking about failure and concepts of failure and how it manifests, especially in young people, none of us are failures. You know, we've all made hard decisions that were necessary in order for us to move forward. And so for those who might be facing similar situations, as I'm sure many are in this day and age, what would you say to them? Ella, why don't you go first?
Again, like, don't give up. Don't think of yourself as a failure. Look at all your options. Think about the things that you think might make you happy and always try. I mean, there were so many directions that I could have gone in and so many directions I tried to go in that I thought I thought would make me happy. I thought would be a good thing for me to do for the rest of my life. And I'm just happy on the thing that I landed on. And that isn't necessarily what everyone's life is going to be like, but it's never a bad thing to keep trying. And yeah, having a good support system is always great.
All right, Melina, end us off.
I would just say, you deserve exactly what you would tell other people. A lot of us would tell our friends going through something, hey man, this is just, a redirection. This isn't a failure. This is your next option is out there. I feel like we are so hard on ourselves, especially as young people. And we also would understand it if our friends were going through these situations. And so if there's other people that are going through something like this, like Ella said, you deserve that. You keep trying, you'll find what works for you. It may not be this. Look at what else is out there. There's other paths, other opportunities, and this isn't the end. This doesn't mean failure. This just means a new path to success.
Thank you both so much. This has been a wonderful conversation, and thank you for being a bit vulnerable with us here today. You've been listening to a panel of local young disruptors. Melina Floyd is a community organizer based in Bristol, and Ella Nicastro is a paraprofessional at Duffy Elementary School in West Hartford. Melina and Ella, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
A big thank you to our interns, Megan Rodriguez-Hawkins and Davina Cordeiro, for hosting our panel and producing this episode. This episode was also produced by Kevin Chang Barnum, Robin Doyon Aiken, and Erica McIntosh. Meg Fitzgerald is our Senior Manager of Projects and Radio Programming. You can listen to more than 250 episodes of Disrupted in our archive. You can find us wherever you get your podcast. From Connecticut Public Radio, this is Disrupted. I'm Kalila Brown-Dean. Thanks for listening.